If our reputation represents what people think of us in public, our character represents who we really are, especially in private when no one's looking. Trials, tribulation, tests, temptation, suffering, these things can either enhance or damage our reputation. And likewise, they can reveal the true us, our real character. When the tests come, they can reveal the bright and shiny parts of us or the things that we're not so proud of, and where I can get stuck there myself and discouraged and feel like such a failure. When I'm mature about it, I can own those things and take them to God and ask His forgiveness. And you know, God's not so interested in making us better people. It's important to know that He wants us first and foremost to be reconciled to Him in a right relationship with Him through Jesus Christ, through the cross and the resurrected Christ. But in that process, He wants us to be made more and more into the image of Christ. And He uses suffering more often than not to do that. It reminds me of the legendary story of Michelangelo as he's sculpting the statue of David, and a person walks by and they say, "Michelangelo, how do you do what you do?" And he says, "You know, for me it's simple. I just chip away at everything that doesn't look like David." And when he's done, he had this beautiful statue of David. And similarly, God is chipping away at those things that don't look like Christ, that don't resemble Him. And frankly, we don't really like that process. And so we encourage ourselves and each other by saying things like, well, you know, God works all things together for good. And that's true. But let's look at that in context in Romans 8:28 and 29 together. For we know that all things work together for good, for those who love God and to those who are the called according to His purpose. For those whom He foreknew, He predestined to be conformed into the image of His Son, that He, being Jesus, might be the firstborn among many brethren. In other words, when God is working all things together for good, the good is not that we get the job, or the guy gets the girl, or that we find that thing that was lost. The good is that we are made more and more into the image of Christ through the suffering we experience. That God knew beforehand. He knew us ahead of time, and it was His commitment to make us more and more into the image of Christ. That's the real good, that Jesus might be the firstborn among many brothers and sisters rightly reconciled to God, bearing His image. We'll never be happier than when we represent Christ in all of His humility and boldness. We just got to trust God in His process. Like Marines who run toward the sound of gunfire, we Christians ought to run toward our cross and take it up and crucify ourselves and see that God has a risen person much more at peace with Him and others than we would be in and of ourselves. Chaplain Jason Owen here, pastor, Camp Courtney Chapel. Remember, God will never leave you nor forsake you.